Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Sorry this took so long to come out, and I've been pretty busy for the last couple of weeks. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and let our special guest introduce himself. I guess just for the people that aren't DRG super fans, if you'd like to introduce yourself and the critical role that you play in making this happen.
No, sure. Yeah. So my name is Mikhail, though most people call me Mike, and I am the lead game designer on Deeper Galactic and now also Rogue Core.
Hell yeah. You'll love to see it. And according to the wide population, also the key figure behind a board game and the survivor, because people don't know how to read.
Hmm?
That's my favorite.
No.
That's my favorite DRG misconception or DRG universe misconception is that you guys are making like 18 games at once and doing everything.
Oh, no, not at all. But yeah, I like. It would have been cool to participate in the board game thing, but
It'd be cool to be able to,
no
work
time.
24 hours a day and also be healthy. But make fun things all the time. So I guess just to start with like opinion-based stuff. So I mean, you've been with DRG for quite a long time, if I'm not mistaken.
Since 2017.
Yeah, so longer than most people, me included, and most people probably hearing this. So in that way, you have a lot better perspective on a lot of things. So I guess either from a developer standpoint or a player standpoint, or both, if you'd like. What is like your favorite element of the game, or like something to work on, or something to interact with? Like what screams this is DRG to you?
That's a lot of things. So I think for me that has been one of the joys of working on this project, is because there are so many elements to it that I guess that are interesting, and kind of the way we've been developing the game in this, like, compared to like where I'm coming from, which is making kind of games that ship as finished products, and usually you're kind of sick of your own game by the time it ships. I've had the very nice experience with DRG where that doesn't happen, and I mean part of it is of course because of kind of as a game how DRG turned out and kind of what the loop is, and again, there's kind of like sometimes we mention the initial intention was not for DRG to be a live service game or what the equivalent of that or whatever. It was to be kind of this thing we release and people play it for 24 hours or something like that, and then they're done and they're happy and everybody's happy and great. But it kind of in the development ourselves when playing it, right, we were just having fun playing a mission at any point, weren't really getting tired of it, and that for us, right, that was a signifier of, okay, we have something special here. But it has also meant that working on it over the years has been just continuously interesting, and there is no one thing for me that screams DRG, and I really like the fact that from update to update, you get to kind of focus on different aspects. So I love the guns. I love working on them. But it's also nice to be able to take a break from that. So kind of this thing of doing new guns is always a lot of fun, and balancing them and trying to tweak them and figure stuff out. That is always fulfilling and nice, but it's also nice to then instead switch, and like when we would make new caves and stuff like that, it's a very different process for making the guns, but is also really fun and is also very DRG, right? I mean, we don't have traditional level design.
Yeah, I feel like that is kind of a loaded question. That's more or less the
It is.
answer I was hoping and expecting. Was like it's kind of a combination of things, because you can have really clean, well-handling guns in another game, but that's not going to make people play a game with theoretically 5 hours worth of content for 4,000 hours. It takes a summary of things, because like
Yeah.
that's the thing is like it's really hard to put DRG in a bottle in that sense, because like I can play through every theoretical piece of content with some exceptions in a single play session, but at the same time, like that one play session is one of hundreds and hundreds, and for whatever reason it doesn't get old because of all those things.
Yeah, it's I mean, we were very very pleasantly surprised as we were kind of developing it that it started going in that direction. And of course, afterwards, after we recognized that, we shifted our mindset to try to support that further.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, initially, this is all third party projecting, but it definitely, reads as DRG was designed to be like very, very like polished and novel and like an encapsulated experience. And then it's ever since then, it's been kind of like course correcting to try to throw a bone to people that are playing hundreds or thousands of hours, because maybe a little unexpectedly, there's more than a few of those. Like, every game will have people that plays it for an inordinate amount of time, but I mean, just from the people I surround myself with, I'm sure is biased, but there does seem to be quite a few people that casually drop 600 hours on a game that other people look at and be like, oh yeah, I played it on a free weekend and it's just not for me.
Yeah.
So that kind of already covered the second bit. Was DRG ever supposed to be a game that like people would play for hundreds or thousands of hours? And I think pretty well.
Not initially, but it is now.
Yeah.
To an extent, right? I mean, and that's kind of is constantly a balance for us, because I completely adore our community, and I think it's completely amazing. And as a developer, right, to have people like what you have made so much is a magical thing. So all the graybeards, the people who have been with us for a long time, they are very special to me. But there's also a lot of new people. So when we are making content, right, when we are making design decisions about more or less anything in the game, we have to kind of consider it from all these various perspectives. And of course, like there are people that have played, for, you can say, hundreds of hours and even more in some cases. And those are kind of like on this one extreme, right? But then there's also, the people that, just played it for 50 hours or something like that. That's still pretty long. Game-wise. And then, of course, we considering, the new players coming in, because there's also a lot of that. I mean, which is very healthy, and we're very happy for that. And that's kind of what is maintaining DRG. It is through new sales of the game, even though we have a slightly higher than usual DLC purchase and stuff like that, conversion, I guess you would call it, or whatever. It is, I mean, games need new players to kind of stay healthy. So we constantly have to consider any system we make, how does this impact new players? But at the same time, it's also like, okay, but how does this impact somebody who has played for 1,000 hours?
Yeah, and that's always, sorry, that's always been something I've tried to keep like in at least the front half of my mind, is like I'm one person versus 100 people that are after a very different experience. So that's something I would like to think I've been better at tempering over the years, rather than just being like, oh, I know how to edit a video now, so here goes the opinion piece. So I've tried to gear that more acutely, and that's kind of why like the overclock thing was such a that exploit situation was kind of like a big ticket, is because it didn't affect me at all, but I could see that the thrash from like my community of newer players, and also just having been someone that was in that system when it wasn't as large as it is. It was like, okay, like not only is this not what needs to happen, the opposite is what needs to happen. So And that was the thing that someone DM'd me. It was like, hey, he was talking at GDC and you got brought up, and I'm like, oh, what for? And they're like, you should probably watch that. Like, oh, great, that's the impression. But yeah, noteworthy internet asshole. I think that'll go on my tombstone. But
Oh, more than
so
that, but yeah.
but so to the effect of understanding that there are people that are going to play DRG and anything DRG related for a disproportionate amount of time to maybe the original intention, is that in any way affecting Rogue Core? And obviously, it's a lot of ideas still rattling around in your head, but
Yeah,
is that like more of a consideration now than it was with DRG proper?
definitely, 100%. So we are approaching Rogue Core, like initially, right? From the beginning, we are considering, okay, um, uh, I guess, yeah, longer play. And I mean, again, like different than if Rokur kind of was a completely disconnected game entirely, right? Like
Yeah.
because it is within this, like within the DRG universe, and kind of like, but even more so, right? Um, I'm constantly considering like how Rokur and DRG coexist. So in that sense, I'm very interested in them scratching different itches, if you will, if possible, so that kind of Rokur doesn't need to
Do
uh,
everything
do
the
what
same.
DRG does. And likewise, DRG can continue doing its own thing, and instead with Rokur we can see like, okay, well, like what new things can we do with the tools that we have? In this case, the tools being, our player movement model, our weapon models, all that stuff. For example, that is the stuff that we are um, not changing unless it needs to change for Rokur. So in that sense, we're saying, it's still in the DRG kind of. It's still a DRG game, which is kind of weird to say, but here we are. So to me, like, it makes sense that, well, I mean, the player character feels like we're still following this combat movement and experience that's very inspired by like the older shooters. A lot of more running and gunning, right? We're not doing aim
No
down sights. We're not doing
cover shooting.
no, not that. I mean, exploring stuff. Like we just started prototyping new enemies. I don't want to say too much about that, simply
Yeah.
because I don't want to like kind of like have people then speculate and hope for things that then don't happen.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that can be hard. But we are looking at how those can um, bring something new to the quote unquote combat puzzle from the standard DRG enemies, from kind of like the bugs. So and how that could make the player consider the environment slightly differently. And we're not talking about extremes. But one of the things that we're trying to poke around is this whole thing of like, how can we make the player consider cover more?
Yeah.
And we have some enemies that, like, you may want to take cover a little bit, but not too much. And I'd like to see if we can push that further. And of course, this is within the context of all the other enemies being there as well, right? So, but yeah,
Not obviously not cover shooting in the sense of press Y to take cover kind of thing. It's more like break line of sight. Like that in my mind, that's a very
yeah.
like
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, sorry. Please finish.
Yeah, just in DRG as it is right now, like there's a lot of situations where cover, air quotes, can be very useful. Like you just break line of sight with a Mactera for that split second while it shoots, but it doesn't define the game as a cover shooter or anything. So
No, not at all. And this thing, I'm kind of like with the new enemies, trying to see if we can take it a little further. Where and so far it is working out. But again, no promise that this actually will end in the game. Maybe we'll find another reason why this is actually a very bad idea. But this thing of not only considering kind of your cover with the enemy you're engaging, but knowing that there are multiple of these types of enemies, also considering like your flanks and so kind of like where are you exposed? Where could you could be attacked from, even though you don't know if there's an enemy there,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. We're poking around, but we, this is running in the end on DRG, right?
Hmm.
So we and we already have been again. Tim, one of the designers, he's very much been focusing on the weapons right now in Rogue Core, and so he is tweaking stuff there, but again it's coming from this thing of like we only change what we feel needs to be changed, and we're not changing things just for the sake of it, because so in the end really I would like us to come be in a place where like if you enjoyed DRG and you like DRG, you will hopefully like this as well, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
at
really want
least
to consider the DRG player base.
feel the DNA in it more or less. Like it'll
Yeah.
be an old friend with a new glove when you shake its hand. So, yeah, no, I definitely appreciate that, and I think it'll be very interesting to have that sort of like base DRG in that sense that, like you said, changes where it needs to, but more or less feels the same. But also, obviously, with a roguelike, balancing is, a tenuous affair, and the entire point of most roguelikes tends to be to become unbalanced by,
Sure.
surviving difficult situations. So that's something I'm very interested to see because, in a roguelike, you can just chalk like this mod or this weapon underperforming as I just didn't get a good mod. Like obviously that's not as of effective thinking, but at the same time, I think you can, if you give the player the option to pick up more damage, then that mitigates a lot of complaints. There's like, oh, this thing doesn't smack. Like, well,
Yeah.
should have taken the damage upgrade, bozo. Like, so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a very interesting thing to look at for me. Is like there's this the DRG. What Rogue Core is in my mind right now is obviously very different, but it's basically DRG with the roguelike mechanics, so that sets off a lot of interesting thoughts in my mind immediately.
Nice.
So, in that same way, so I guess being a little bit familiar with how I play DRG as it is now compared
Mm-hmm.
to probably the original vision is a little bit of a departure. So, like, what do you think of like DRG as kind of this like smash and grab style of faster game in that not from a design perspective so much as just is it ever like interesting like the subversion of systems, and how does that affect the way you guys look at the trajectory of the game, and like well people are clipping into the drop pod or people are manipulating the drop pod, maybe this is like well clearly people want to do it, so does that ever like inform like the thought process
Uh,
at all?
so I mean, taking that example
Yeah.
directly, um, with most of these things, if it's not messing up the game for other players, in most cases we don't want to change something, especially if it's something that's been around and is being used, like the dropout clipping that is being used by the speedrun community. Like don't need to take that away unless it's causing an issue in the greater game
Yeah.
overall, and that's the overall approach. I think, I mean, again, it's super amazing that people are playing DRG in different ways. It's super cool. Again, going back, we've been looking at your all the enemies at once video, and it's like it's cool that something like that can happen. It's I mean, it puts a smile on my face, and like I would like to preserve that as much as possible. I think it's super cool. Same thing like with the speed runs. Like sometimes I watch a speed run. It's just it's super cool to see it, and I don't want to like just fix bugs. And we've also, because DRG is kind of where it is now in its lifetime. When we look at bugs, it's also kind of like, okay, I mean, if it's just generally a bad bug, yes, we want to fix it. But some things, it's like, okay, well, this is like, it is a bug, and it's letting players do something, and do we really care, right? I mean, is it really worth fixing because somebody is actually potentially having fun with it? Um, and yeah, it's again, and kind of the modding thing, and right now the whole modding situation is really not where we would want it to be. But yeah, the developer that was taking care of modding support, he had to change jobs because he wanted to move close to his family after he got a kid. Um, and we haven't been able to find a replacement because it's a very, very special kind of job. It wasn't the only thing he was doing, but it's something that that person needs to want to do, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
because it is a little bit in like it's a very nebulous thing because I mean, one you have to work closely with the community and trying to help them, but it's also kind of um uh, like the it's not like a lot of the things you're doing, they're not coming from the designers and stuff like that. They are
yeah.
coming from the modding community, and it's like trying to prioritize things and look at that. So
Developing backwards almost, like how could we
yeah.
make modding work, or how can we like give them very little experience on my side, so I'm mainly talking out of my ass, but
I don't know, but
basically like working development in reverse is like how do we open a door that we close to make this work with the game. Like
yeah, exactly. And so hopefully soon. Though again, like right now, we still don't have anybody who can take that. Like we have people who can technically do it, but they
yeah,
don't have the passion for it, so it's not gonna be good enough, kind of thing, right? It's not,
yeah,
I mean,
it's gonna complicate the actual fix when that time comes.
yeah.
So just look at, I mean, we had plenty of talk about it already, but looking at this maintenance update stuff that came out
Yes.
yesterday for you, yeah. So, I mean, looking at this is very, like, validating in a lot of ways. Like, hearing a lot of these
You're talking
things.
about your suggestion with the weapon mastery thing.
How, okay,
Uh,
well,
that you,
that's good to have a little bit of confirmation because I wanted to believe that was a little bit making it. So that's good to
yeah.
hear. I fully understand that the way that I presented it would have been a pretty much a technical disaster because it would involve like 100 checks in every mission for weapons and progression and everything. So it was never in my mind that was like this is how it should be like in a perfect world. Yeah, like the game should have all that stuff like
Yeah.
baked in and already functioning and just can be added to, but I understand that tacking on a system to check how many enemies are hit with every PGL grenade and then that kind of thing on every single weapon is probably insane at this point, so that was
I
more
mean,
just
so
fun.
just to say, actually, like if I'm like look at your and watch your video. So if I look at that suggestion that you had, actually, my main issue, and this is again coming back to this, designing for a range of players. Um, uh, 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 I mean, yes, it technically would be a large task, but from a design point, one of the things we try to do, and you kind of can see that in, the season challenges that we have, and I know people are like, oh man, I wish there was more season challenges that were kind of making me do different things, or the same thing with the milestones in the whole perk system and all that stuff. Uh, because we're kind of really putting this co-op first lens on everything we do. It's kind of like one of our guiding principles to everything. And so when looking at a system like this, that tells you to kill many enemies with a PGL grenade, my main the thing that would make me not want to actually put that in is that, well, then you may be playing and again, not you, as in
Yeah, no,
Axis
direct it
Chronos,
all, direct
not
it all at me. That's the easiest way.
no, but what I mean is that like it doesn't. This is not an issue for, let's say, the Greybeards, but this is an issue for the Greenbeards,
True.
and
Yeah.
the in between, because I don't want a player to hunt that mastery, challenge, when really what they should be doing is getting that Morkite.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a
So
completely
we're
fair.
really focusing on saying, like, almost all our challenges are about completing missions.
Mhm.
Do whatever needs to be done for the team to survive and for you to complete the mission. And that has limited a lot of what we could do, right? That kind of constraint that we have put upon ourselves. But I think that for DRG, that constraint is important. So we're kind of sticking to this. So again, if you look at the maintenance system, right, it's just saying
Yeah,
play with the damn guns.
win. Yeah, or
Exactly.
maybe
Play with
even
the damn
don't. Like,
guns. Get as much
yeah,
XP as possible. That does not. You don't get XP by killing you or stuff like that. Right? You get it by completing the missions. So
yeah,
what's good
and
for you is
yeah,
good for the team.
that definitely makes a lot of sense. And that's the different timeline of GRG where we're all going for high scores and trying to put up numbers. So more than anything, yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I remember getting quite a few of those comments of like, "Oh, this is so toxic. There's a challenge on the C4 to kill the scout. How dare you?" Like, fair shake, like not entirely
Yeah,
wrong, but yeah, and to that degree, that's why part of that video was like, yeah, maybe these numbers could be like 2 instead of 10 with a single shot, so it's not like you killed by 10th enemy with your turret. How dare? So yeah, but
yeah,
no, like looking at the way this is implemented, like comparatively to like the technical debt and most likely time that it would have taken to make all these unique things for every weapon and all that, comparatively to this, seems like a much more appropriate amount of effort for a proportionally very similar result. Like a new progression system and a new cosmetic progression system is in
yeah,
the game, which is kind of starting from the same A and reaching the same D. So
yeah.
like it really
I follow.
does, it resonates. I appreciate it. It's good and very very validating to hear you be like, oh yeah, your idea. Like, you flatter me. I'm sure
Uh,
I'm not the first person to say this, but it's very
oh, but I
very
mean,
nice to see.
again, right? We like here in the office. We watch. I mean, I'm constantly stalking YouTube for new DRG videos and stuff like that. We watch
Yeah,
almost everything.
I don't know if you
Um,
had a chance to see SNIS's like the season evolution video with like the TF2 like
yeah,
comp
yeah.
tracker thing.
Saw that.
Yeah, that. If I was hoping you'd had seen that already, because if not, I was gonna go make you watch that, and I would just sit here and
No.
listen. But yeah, I mean, that's like obviously even more technical debt. But one of the main things that I wish I'd picked up on, before, well, obviously hindsight, but one of the best things he put in that video that I wish I'd brought up or added in some way, because I said like, this overclock has this challenge, the like renting the overclock idea is really really cool, and I understand that the potential for like an exploit there to like keep it forever is kind of scary, but I thought that was a really really good idea. So
Yeah.
if at any point any version of the SNIS system makes it to the game, that's got my my 15 thumbs up, because that's hella nice, and the rental
Cool.
thing
Yeah.
mitigates quite a bit as far as the like a lot the little nitpick complaints I can still make about overclocks, which is like someone sees me playing with this and they're like, oh, that's really cool, I gotta go grind for it, and just rent
Yeah.
it and at least see if you're even gonna like it. So that's a tangent for me, but yeah, I
No,
mean
no, but
everything
I
else.
totally understand, and I think like again that these are all valid like points from any individual player's point of view, right? It's like, I mean, again, everything that players feel is valid. I mean, their feelings, right? I mean, they come from somewhere. There's a reason players have them. I, as a player of games myself, also have them, right? And I certainly feel my opinions and all that stuff is valid. Um, but again, kind of when we look at these systems and we design these systems, we're coming from a very different place than any individual player does, right? And that is where like we're not right now considering any kind of renting system and stuff like that. And haven't like given it any like serious thought, so I don't have much to say on that.
Yeah.
But this thing of like the way we designed the overclock or the deep dive and core system, it had this inherent price that people will not be able to get the thing they want when they want. That was kind of like part of the deal with the devil, if you will.
Yeah.
For what we wanted that system to do and for why we made that system. And kind of I don't see us really like putting in systems that would mitigate that, because that is kind of it is part of it is part of the whole package. And while it is frustrating for that that player that wants that overclock, or even that cosmetic, right? And the cosmetics, I mean, they're in an even crazier place at this point. And we are shifting into this place, right, where it's kind of like getting any one specific cosmetic for a new player that has just started the game. That's not something you can plan for if it's in the core, if it's in like the cosmetic cores, right? I mean, you cannot plan to get that cosmetic. It is just something you can get lucky with, and that is part of what that system was designed to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a lot more, I think acceptable is a strong word, but it's a lot more palatable with cosmetics because it's cosmetics, and that's why the overclock grind being the same way up until the anniversary update where the promotion bit changed. Like, that was the thing, is always one of the things I said is like, even if it was like ridiculously expensive or still slow, if there was just a way for me to sit at my keyboard and not wait for next Thursday and somehow get one more blank core, then I could hand wave a lot of it. It was always just the like, this person plays 60 hours this week and gets 6 cores. This person plays 8 hours this week and gets 6 cores. It was like you said, like, it's obviously you got to make a compromise somewhere to have that scarcity and make those overclocks actually valuable and not have people just get them all in 4 days. But that was, and even if it is still a long time with the promotion system, at least now it can be like, well, at least you're rewarded proportionally for what you play. So I'm not so much worried about the cores per hour of grinding promotions. I can, I hand wave all that by saying, well, obviously, like, they listened. There's a concession made there from the original system, so I've moved on to smaller and more nitpicky things.
Nice.
But like all the other stuff in the maintenance update is very, very validating to see in a lot of ways. Like, pretty much nothing else that I was as big on, but like Stingtail launching people around, the septic spreader change that I'm not sure if you heard it from anyone in particular, but it was made note of in a particular video by Chancellors that I thought was very good and concise.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah. Is there any possibility that that's where that originated from, or?
It definitely. So the thing is, like, again, because like, I'm like I speak for myself right now, right? I watch most of the not the playthrough videos, because those are super long, and but like all the kind of like commentary videos and stuff like that. Like, I actively try to find and watch every single one that is on YouTube on DRG. So kind of so the thing that Chancellors had in the video totally influenced this, right? But kind of it's not just in and of itself. It's this thing of kind of trying to immerse yourself in all the suggestions, complaints, and all that stuff, right? And then kind of from that think about how that can work, right? So But yeah, sure. You can
Yeah,
if you're in contact with chancellors, you can tell them that
I just,
yes,
I wanted to give him that warm fuzzy at least because I thought
yes,
it was a super good idea that I didn't even like consider, and then seeing it just manifest with basically very little. I hadn't really thought about it since then. I was like, oh, that would be cool, that'd be good, and then it's like, oh,
yeah,
here it is. So it kind of
yeah.
just feels like, oh, I didn't know if maybe there was a whole Discord sub channel over there spamming about it that made the change, but yeah, it was very
No,
excited
no,
to see
but
that for
right, but
him.
it kind of comes with like what people are have been kind of voicing and what
Yeah,
we're also seeing, also ourselves, right, when we're playing the stream team, as we call the
yeah,
group
that's it.
that
We
plays weekly.
seen
Um,
a couple clips of you guys getting bombarded on that salvage point by like six of them. I was just
exactly,
like,
right, and it was
here
kind of
comes
like,
the
okay, so on
nerf.
salvage, what do you do? And that's where it's like. So that was like, like we wanted to address that for this update. This, like, when you can't, because the stinktail is, not stinktail, the septic spreader is made to displace players, right? So it's
Yeah,
saying this area is no good for you right now. Go somewhere else.
come back later.
And
Yeah,
right, and that's a problem in salvage,
yeah,
obviously. And like, so kind of again, right, this thing we want to have, it's like, okay, so yeah, you can if your awareness is high enough and you actively are trying to do this, right, you're trying to counter this septic spreader that is trying to bombard your area, right, you can do it now.
yeah. That's
now
and
you
I
now
think that's
you
a
now you
really
can do it.
cool.
Before you couldn't. Before you had to like send the scout to go and
Yeah,
hunt it down and kill it. And if you didn't have the scout, that could actually be suddenly a big problem.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So
so
that was always one thing for me is like it was very much just another ranged enemy, and that was definitely the idea I heard that was like, oh wow, that makes it its own thing, because like yeah, it no other ranged enemy really like displaces or denies area as bad as that maybe the goo bomber, but point being like now there's actually some like counterplay and there's a back and forth and there's a reaction to the spreader other than dodge and try to kill it. So I think
yes.
that on its own is a really like interesting like, oh, look at that, that's really cool. And then the Rockpox stuff obviously, and the season 4 off switch is really
I mean, it's
sensitive
not a
and
season
dark
4
right.
off switch. You
Yeah,
should
true, true.
consider it as like a season because I mean this is gonna stay. This is not going away. So when season 5 comes around,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
finish that one, you'll be able to turn that off.
yeah.
Um, uh, so
That's
uh,
something I was assuming would probably be a no-brainer, but that's nice to have confirmation on that too.
yes.
And one thing I wanted to pitch that I put in the video I made earlier today or yesterday is would you consider it either possible or ever a consideration to make like a sort of like time machine for the seasons, like have these switches be retroactive? Like could someone roll
Funny you
back
say
their
that.
game? Okay.
That was something we considered for like initially. It was is one of the when we were looking at this, right? We were like, okay, so season 5's far away, huh? What can we do? And one of the things we're like, oh, well, it would be kind of cool if people could play the content from the old and exactly and like I mean like one of the ideas for this was like you'd actually be able to like load in the previous season pass, right? So for people who never played it
That's
or simply haven't completed it, right, it would be kind of like, okay, well, you can do that, and that would also kind of take some of the pressure out of the
cargo
you know
crates and the
not
cores.
I would say yeah, exactly, out of all those systems, right,
Yeah, that
which are
that that is.
random,
Mhm.
but that, like we talked about, and that is a humongous task. I mean, so I'm not saying that we will never do it, but I mean, just like it is something we totally consider. It's something that I think would be very cool to have.
Mhm.
But it is, the system was never ever 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 designed to do that.
To switch.
So yeah, so it would be, I think, almost a like a re-implementation.
Yeah, on the
I'm
back
not a
end. Like
programmer. I'm not a
it would
programmer.
look, yeah, it would look the same to us, but it would probably involve weeks and weeks of basically.
I think weeks is an understatement.
Oh God.
I mean, like in terms of like, I think sometimes in terms of like hour spent. So for example,
Mm.
with the Stingtail,
Yeah.
like I've been tweaking the Stingtail. One of the things I want to tweak on it is like health. So changing health scaling, and then of course, right when I'm tweaking health, then I have to think about breakpoints and stuff like that. So I mean, I literally spent 2 days just shooting it with different guns.
Yeah, it's not as easy as
Right.
changing a 10 to a 5. Like it's literally yeah like,
No,
and
there's a lot
then
to
you
consider,
yeah,
and it's
and you
not just
also have to make
numerical,
sure
right?
that changing the armor health doesn't suddenly make the dread start taking damage through its armor. Like
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
so,
we're also right now QA Amanda from QA. She's in contact with some people from the community about the whole like armor bug thing, because that's something that I would really like to
yeah,
uh,
that
get
one's become
get.
a real poster
Yeah,
child.
yeah, it really has. So we're kind of like, yeah, she's talking with them. We're trying to figure out exactly what is going on, and we're getting a little more insight where like I can say, okay, no, that's actually intended as it is, and then it's like, okay, that is totally weird.
Yeah,
I think there was
that's
one where like um, light armor, right, the one that kind of passes damage through. Apparently, the chance to break it scales with hazard for AOE, but doesn't scale with hazard for direct damage. And it's been
yeah,
like this forever, right? So
yeah.
I don't even know. Like, I mean, maybe it was intentional for some reason. I mean, it wasn't done. The choice wasn't made by me, but we need to like figure out. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
is there a good reason?
so
Who even made this? So
just bring this man to justice.
no. Or is it even like is there code that says this should happen, or is it just a byproduct of something else, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we're in the process there.
Yeah.
I really hope
Gunk
we
seed
can get.
air grab fix. Oh my god, it's coming. So exciting. I've heard from Please Fix.
Mm. No, yeah. Yeah, for the right, we've been trying to like select bug fixes, and we're kind of going for this thing of, well, which one seems really annoying and is something that people have been talking about it, or even has votes on Please Fix. By the way, anybody listening to this, like votes on Please Fix help us. I mean, they're useful, right? They let us know a little bit, like if we have to choose between two bugs, and they take the same amount of time, and they're the same kind of like criticality. Like the one that has more votes makes sense for us to tackle first, right? Um, but so we're kind of like, I mean, as we're selecting the bugs we wanted to fix for this maintenance update, it was kind of like this balance between we want things that are fairly fast to do because we don't have a lot of time and we don't want to bog down with only one, but we also want bugs that would impact players' experience. So yeah.
No ones that are
Uh,
seen every day instead of once a month, like, but are also more gameplay focused, I'd say. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's a
there's
balance of all of
multiple.
those things, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if it's not seen every day, but it is like a very annoying one or something like that, that's also kind of like worth doing.
yeah. So,
Um,
severity, visibility, of
yeah,
unfunning factor,
exactly, right? I mean,
like armor
that's
break
also
is
important.
annoying, but at the same time, it's like numbers, so it's kind of more benign and doesn't affect most, like I'd say most people playing the game. Even if it is
Oh no,
affecting them, they don't even notice. So like, not to say that you're putting it on the back burner because of that or anything, but obviously that's something to consider. Is like, well, like the people that are in tune with this have noticed and gathered all this information, but at the same time, like it's not ruining the fun for 90% of players like the game crashing on launch would be. So
exactly. I mean, but that is definitely right part of consideration.
yeah,
So you are correct there.
and how long it's cooking. So armor break gets points in that category at least. But so just to throw a couple things at you, not to try to get a promise or anything. And I've heard before the union, like the miners union, is kind of just there these days. There's not really like the person that worked on it is no longer working there. If I'm
Yeah, that's
or
Pedro.
doing
That
something,
he went a
or
long time ago. He moved to Canada.
I gotcha. So, is there any consideration of either like pulling it and doing something else with it, or like retrofitting it, or doing some sort of like maybe
Um,
moving the daily challenges to that and giving it its own terminal, or just even any thoughts, not necessarily plans.
yeah. Definitely no plans. And thoughts go as far as yeah, we should do something about this at some point. That would be a good thing to do. But we've been completely deprioritizing it.
Hmm.
So and yeah, that's where it is. So I cannot promise anything there
No,
except well, all I can say is that um,
hey, you remember it's in the game, which is more than I can say for most
we
players.
remember that it's
So,
in the game. Yes, we remember that it's in the game. Yeah,
I
and
get
then
that jump scare every now and then. I'll load into the game and it'll be like rewards available to claim. Like, what the hell is that? No,
uh,
oh yeah, that thing.
actually, I have a few questions for you.
Oh really? Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I'm
uh,
basically just throwing like more of this. What about this at you at this point? So I definitely, if you have something substantial, I'd love to hear that first.
I mean, it's something that me and Mikkel, the game director, right? We were looking at your kill everything or all enemies at once video and discussing it. And a few questions.
For
So
sure.
first off, why were you running heightened senses? I'm
Uh,
very curious about that.
so I mean, what would you run? I guess the obvious question is, what would you run instead? But also for me, grabs in this game are
Mhm.
particularly brutal for me because the way that I tend to play games that I'm like my forever games, like my loop games, like whenever I was super into Borderlands 2 or Terraria or Payday 2,
Mhm.
it's game sound on 1% so that I can hear like the cloaker kick coming or like the boss spawn or the rare
Yeah,
enemy spawn noise in Borderlands or something like that. So I
yeah,
can hear those, but pretty much everything else is deadened. So
yeah,
you better believe that little cave leech hiss is
yeah.
not making it over the sounds of the 2 hour Skrillex mega mix. Like, so that for the most part, heightened senses is a convenience choice for me. It's very much like a skill that the listening for the leech, aside from the audio
Yeah.
bug that's been in and out for years, that is one of the reasons I like to lean on for motivation or for an
Yeah,
excuse for a cop out. You got to consider I also run it's a bug thing 24/7
yeah,
on every class, so perk decisions from me probably aren't the most
yeah,
valid thing to be listening to,
yeah.
but also I mean in that environment like a grab would probably be the end of me even if Bosco was there. So if anything, heightened senses in that mission was probably the most valid it's ever been, just because
Okay,
the.
okay, okay.
I mean, I did I end up using it? I'm not even sure. I think I might have got grabbed by the grabber, but there was one where the cave leeches spawn super weird with
Yeah,
Twitch spawns unless you give them like their own little like settings, which tell on myself didn't bother to do.
yeah.
So the cave leech just kind of spawns in the floor. So I would end up running over it and just getting like insta grab, which obviously
Uh,
isn't a problem in the normal game. So don't
yeah.
design around that. But being able to break out with senses in that situation is obviously a must.
Okay, okay.
So
That makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah.
Then I have uh, another question. So, um, uh, we were kind of as we were watching you do this and being very impressed by what you were doing. We started talking about whether it could be done with a four-player team. What do you think?
I mean, the thing is with DRG is a lot of the difficulty comes from the scaling when we're talking about vanilla and modded. So
Yeah,
the thing is like you're getting 30 grunts versus 5 in solo. No, that's not how it works, but
yeah,
So
yeah.
whenever we're spawning the same amount of enemies, I almost think it would be easier. The resupplying would be tricky, and the major thing that like sketches me out is aggro and like where you're pulling like the dreads and
Yeah.
having like you're trying to cross paths with another player and you get dread stomped. That and you'd probably want to play all 4 scouts, or it would be really, really scuffed, and
Yeah, that
you'd
was the other
probably
question we were talking about. Is like, could you do this not as scout?
it would be really, really tedious. I think
Yeah,
I'm. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do a lot of things. Like you could pull that off with sticky flames, probably faster. It would if you like took 4 revives on Bosco and like piled all the enemies on top of you, you could probably do some like really like brute forcey stuff and kill most of the normal enemies as driller. But it's then you have to consider that you're fighting in that the way that I set that up. You're fighting like 5 dreads with sticky flames, so
Yeah.
that would be pretty awful. But I mean, if you get lucky enough with resupplies, I think any class can do that. NG is probably the scariest for me, just because, like, RJ isn't really an option, just because you'd be so gimped for damage, because all of the opportunity cost of taking RJ would be ridiculous. Like, you'd lose out on Breach, which would be, like, if I could take one weapon for that challenge, it would be Breach, because you could kill, like, half the enemies in the game in a mag, so, but then you're kind of a sitting duck, so... It would be very, very challenging, and there's a reason that I did it on Scout. It was far easier by a long shot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, Mikkel was saying that like there's no way
it would
done
be
without Scout, and also about kind of the team. So if he's walking by right now. He's saying it's a challenge.
it would, so
I mean, you're being given a challenge by the game director. If you could get a 4-man. One of each class team to do that.
Through that? Okay. Well, I mean, the thing is...
You don't have to take up the challenge, just so you know.
I mean, obviously I got to theory craft it at that, but like I said, if it's just one of every enemy in the game, it's the same difficulty. It's just 3 of your player... Well, the dreads are going to be harder. That's a factor.
Yeah, a couple of the enemies are going to scale.
Yeah, well, I guess all of them probably would, but it's just the healthier
Not the
enemies
small
you have
ones,
to worry
right?
about.
Not the small ones.
Yeah,
like normal grunts, they don't scale by player numbers.
The thing is, well, if I played it by that same rule set, then I'd have the point extraction ambience as well, which would be cranked up really hard by 4 players.
I would, yeah.
So the way that I kind of see this going is basically 3 players dead, and then Scout doing the same thing.
Oh no!
So, like, I mean, that's the worst case scenario, but it would be a lot of chain reviving, and I don't. Doing that on Shield Disruption would be so absurdly tedious that I don't know if I could get anyone to volunteer that for that kind of torture. But
man, I was really impressed that you did that on Shield Disruption.
Yeah, it was just kind of like I was just like doing time travel looking for the right arena to do it on, and I saw that one. I was like, man, 7 of Quarks, that's like a good biome. That's kind of where I want to do it. I'll try it, because I'd already finished it once. I had like 3 deaths. Like I used both Bosco revives and an Iron Will, so I was like, okay, I'll give it another go. And then I got that on like my 3rd try, which was crazy. So like I said, it really it's probably one of the hardest things I've done, but it didn't really take that long, surprisingly. I mean, each attempt was like almost an hour, but it didn't take that many tries. Like doing
I follow.
Yeah. Like doing all 4 stats as 0 kills, 0 mines, 0 revives, 0 downs. That took me like 20 tries, given some of those were like less than a minute, because I'd walk out of the pod and trip over some nitra and instantly fail. So, but it do be like that. So, yeah, I think the answer to that is it'd be a much more deranged team of people to pull that off in 4-player. Like Highlander composition, one of each class.
Oh, cool.
Anything else in regards to that?
No, that was it. Those are my questions, because we watched it, and then we started talking about it, and then we started arguing whether or not it could be done. And he was like, "No way," and I was like, "I don't know. I've seen some crazy shit."
It would be up there for sure. It would be very cheesy in a lot of spots, I'm sure. But so I guess a couple more quick things to fling by you is.
Yeah.
So looking at randomizer, like it is one of my favorite things in the game now that it's all trimmed up and proper and working as intended. Is there anything, like, is there any thoughts of, this is kind of treading into like Rogue Core territory almost, is there any consideration of like a randomizer mode, or like adding a slight bonus for the team for each player that's affected by it, or any like actual gameplay interaction with it, or is it, obviously it's just for fun?
We consider this, and we decided to keep it pure, in the sense like you do this for fun.
Mm-hmm.
You do it simply because you want to do it. Haha. It's something you enjoy. as a player. And again, we really made it with the. This was an example of something that like our main consideration were the long-time players, and we're like, how can we give them something that like could just make the game feel a little fresh or just a little something. It's like because actually like often when I play like most of the time I'm playing like on our dev builds, and my saves are all over the place. Actually, my real DRG save had to be sacrificed at one point, and I never quite
came back.
No. It was like an emergency thing. We needed to test something, and this was before the save game, like restoring stuff, and it was a super stressful time. So I didn't even make a copy of the save because I was just okay. Anyway, yeah. But very often, right, when I'm playing like our dev builds and stuff like that, it's like often my save is kind of semi clean or whatever, and I have to give my weapons upgrades and stuff like that, and I just kind of randomly click around. Don't try not to think about it too much. And
same concept in practice.
Exactly, and I actually enjoyed some because sometimes like okay, this is what I ended up with. And so it was like, yeah, this could be cool.
Is there, not to pivot too quickly, but is there any consideration for? I mean, I was playing right around the time where promotion badges went from gold to legendary. Is there any thought of either like a post-legendary like shift in that system, or another set of 3 with stars, or is it? I mean, I'm sure
it's never ending, right? It has completely crossed the mind, and it's like so the thing. And this is again right the kind of like the different players, and like the kind of when I'm looking at this, my concern are the players that kind of have finally got it all. They wanted to get it all, and now they finally got it, and I don't want to be like, haha, now there's more.
Goalpost shifted, like.
Exactly. I don't want to do that. We actually talked a little bit about because there's a mod that kind of like then gives a number of
that's exactly what
and we were thinking of like, okay, can we actually like make an official version of that, so that there's like official support of that, but at the same time for somebody with like who wants a little bit of like just wants to complete the set, right? Those numbers don't really work because they're endless. They're endless numbers, and nothing is changing. So we actually were talking about doing something like that. We got as far as a few concepts of how that would look. I mean, I think the way the mod did it looks fine, but we would like to kind of give it a more official
it's a mod
feel.
Like it is very much like it's functional, but it doesn't have that pre-expectation of this is part of the product. So
so that's how I see us doing it. There's no plan for when we would do that, but I think we probably will at some point.
Hell yeah. Because
unless somebody thinks of a very good reason not to.
My like final thing that I came to rest on for how that would look in my mind is just like a little like galactic color, or like pink or purple, and Roman numerals is what makes sense to me.
Ooh,
because
Roman
numerals. It's a much more compact, like it's a lot easier to display. Well, I guess maybe it's.
It also looks fancy. It also looks. No, I mean it's not. I think compactness. I don't know. But it looks cool.
It would start like upper 80s would probably start to get pretty fat in terms of like width with because you'd have to like leave a little screen on it, or maybe they could track around the border of it or something. I mean, obviously there's
no idea.
But
I like the idea, so I'm gonna poke an artist for a concept for that.
For now, we will make do with the mods and as our way to flex our own wasted time, but like. I'm closing in on 100 on each class right now, so that's
holy moly.
It's very and that's a consideration in my mind, because like I forget that it's like, man, I've been at like 91 on everybody forever, and then it's the like realization is like, oh yeah, it stopped at 18 on each, so I gotta kind of like hang the yardstick down and be like, oh yeah, I'm kind of climbing a little high, a little close to the sun, so.
That's fucking crazy, man.
Brag too much. That's all of my time, but Yeah, I mean, it seems like we've already run over the estimated time block, so I don't want to
I
take up too
actually
much time.
I have 7 more minutes.
Oh hell yeah,
If
perfect.
if 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 we have, I got 7 minutes.
Okay, let me see if I can cook anything else up. So, in terms of gameplay progression, is there even like what like I said, ideas versus plans? Is there even any like ideas or desires to make another like lateral progression or another sort of power increase? Or because I mean obviously the power creep and everything is always the concern, but is there any sort of like pipe dream like potion brewing system or alchemy imbuement, like, yeah,
Oh, like
no
that?
matter what form it takes, is there some sort of stat like new stat boost system that's cooking
No,
or even a consideration? Okay,
no.
because
Well, so the kind of in terms of like gameplay, the one thing that I've been thinking about, I think for years at this point, is um like the armor and the kind of the upgrades on the armor and stuff like that.
yeah.
Right now, kind of the DRG armor is very much it kind of what it is. Yeah, you have some choices there, but I like um uh either like new armors or armor overclocks that could like push that in a different way, and I would love to do that in a way where it's would make sense for you to kind of like cross build with your guns. So like one example is like having like an armor overclock or upgrade or whatever, right? That would like um, let you carry more ammo, right? So suddenly like this change on the armor can make you reconsider builds on the weapons, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I think like I would love to do that. I don't know when.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing
There's
is,
no plans for it,
yeah, yeah.
but that like that is something that I just personally have considered. Um, and then
Yeah, and that's I think a great like that's pretty much the last hole I think whenever I look at the game and like what could use like more cook, like what could cook longer. There's not many things, like there really isn't. Like perks could use like, you know, I would say
yeah,
balancing
perks
like,
we want to look at. Yeah,
yeah.
that's its own
So
thing.
obviously, like I said, whenever I'm talking about changing progression systems, everything kind of takes a backseat to the things that are already, you know, a lot more like thought on, like perks. But yeah, no, I think armor is definitely a great place because I don't think anyone will particularly miss the choice between faster shield recharge or shorter shield delay. That's kind of a like a nothing burger choice. Like yeah, like
Yeah.
it's like the only place in the game that even becomes like a consideration is shield battery booster because it like amplifies those
Yes.
modifications. So in that way, it's like yeah, they're upgrades, but they're also the upgrade that you take on every class and never look at for 4,000 hours. So
Exactly.
that's definitely that I
I'd love to change that.
didn't necessarily think about that, but yeah, having some sort of like little micro skill tree on the armor would be really cool. And if I could make the suggestion, that's where a dash should go from the active perks. It should go to the player armor, the base player. That's because I got a lot of feelings
Noted.
about a lot
Noted.
of I got a lot of feelings about a lot of things, but
Of
at this
course.
point, like dash is just such like a fundamental game opener for not just like people always say it's a crutch for this or that. Like yeah, you can get back into a corner and dash yourself to safety when you otherwise would have died, but at the same time, it like makes the traversal for gunner really interesting that you can like do these little like Skyrim horse jumps like slightly up a wall and then dash across a pit that you'd have like no chance of clearing otherwise. So in that way it's more than just, you know, the active perk that you use to get away instead of killing bugs with Berserker. It's like a whole other movement
Yeah.
system for some people. So I know that whenever that perk rework comes around, Dash is probably gonna feel the wrath. But if anything,
Uh,
maybe we
I don't want to say anything.
save it from the fires. Oh, it's getting deleted. It's getting removed from the game.
Oh,
Dash
Dash?
users
No,
save
no, no,
file
no.
marked.
Dash is
Save
not gonna
file
get deleted.
converted to sandbox. It's over.
No, no.
None.
Actually, I mean, on the perk side of things, right? And we are perks are very much on the table as something we're gonna tackle for season 5. We don't want to like publicly commit to it yet,
Yeah.
but it is definitely one of the things that is looking. And right, that's coming like. There's also the whole like perk point surplus and
Hmm.
how we approach that. I mean, it's
I
not just like the perk balance that we would like to address. It is also kind of
the size
um,
of the system and its potential, I guess.
yeah, but so the reason there's that surplus is because we wanted the milestone like we kind of didn't wanted the milestones to some milestones to be difficult.
Optional. And yeah,
Exactly, right?
so
Because I mean, not it, like
mhm.
literally, not everybody can play high hazard. They
Yep.
just can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like sometimes I see people talk about like on Reddit and stuff like that, and like I mean like yes the game like you think Hazard 4 is easy and stuff like that, but not everyone is like you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I
um
completely.
and their experience is just as valid, right? I mean
Exactly. Yeah.
if Hazard 2 is making you white knuckle grip the mouse, that's fine.
Yeah. Like that's. I mean, the
uh,
arachnophobia warriors that are somehow sticking it out in this game.
uh,
They deserve that third passive perk slot as much as anyone else. So give them enough to get there without having to see a
yeah,
bug. But yeah, I
yeah.
think if nothing else, like my automatic answer is just like have all the leftover perk points just convert into like a little bit of credits and minerals or something, like because obviously then it's harder to like modify in the future. But if that's whenever season 7 or whatever comes to its end,
Yeah.
it's like okay, time for DRG to go into maintenance mode and get put on the shelf with all the other shiny things, then maybe that's a point where that decision can be made, like okay, all these perk points can turn into shiny stuff instead. But
Oh, like that. I mean, I think I would like us to try to do something
yeah,
more than
obviously,
that.
but yeah.
And again, I'd like us like this is like I'd like us to address this nowish, not in the future.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. But that's again, these are kind of the things. But I don't see us doing a lot of new. I'm always like personally like wary of power creep.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like
To me, that's
that's
kind of
this is something I feel
um,
like I don't say enough, is that DRG has been a finished game since oh god, years are getting away from me. 2020, I think. DRG's been a finished game for a long time, and like the main like row and thrash for me is the content that's coming into the game, and is the things that are changing about the game making the game a better finished product than it was when it first became a finished product. And usually the answer is yes, but as 200 and some YouTube videos have
yeah,
confirmed, not always. So, in my opinion, just to be clear.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
And
it's all
I think the
opinions.
only thing I would counter to that is that like while yes, at one point DRG was a finished product. Um, I think we also have to kind of accept like because we've kind of leaned into this game service thingy with it,
Yeah,
and that when you do that like as a developer, that also you kind of make the game not a finished product anymore.
exactly. Yeah, and
And so we have to like also acknowledge that yes, I mean if we are going to present the game as something that is bringing new content all the time, then of course
yeah,
like I mean players can't say, well, it's a finished game and these are free updates and you should just be grateful for it. That's not kind of the the
yeah.
developer player contract that we kind of decided to set up when we went seasons.
Yeah, and that's
Uh,
something that's interesting to hear, because a lot like that is a very common excuse, is like, well, you can't complain, like it's free, like the chain grab stingtail insta kill is free, so like how can you complain about it? Like some very tone deaf commentary from people that are just as bad as me in the other direction. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to hear you say that it unbecomes finished in a way. So I guess my
yeah.
definition of finished game is that y'all could go to the cigarette store, go to get milk, and never come back, and I don't think anyone could say that they were robbed of $30, but
No, in that
yeah,
sense, sure, right?
yeah.
But I mean, I'll happily agree with the people that say the game is certainly worth its asking price.
Oh yeah, like I
But
mean, I don't entertain the $1 1 hour thing much these days, but I think even
no.
for people that don't particularly like have a future in with themselves with DRG, they can at least find their $30 in it like pretty easily.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope
even
so.
if they
Uh,
don't, I believe
I
in
think we have
you.
to end here, though. I
Gotcha.
have a stand-up for Rokor in 2 minutes.
Oof, okay. All right. Well, sorry to keep you over long. You can
Oh no.
link my YouTube channel and tell them to come blame me. So I really appreciate it, man. I hopefully we can find some more time in the future, more
Definitely, definitely.
more
But yeah,
off rip,
thanks for taking the time to do this as well.
and actually play
Awesome.
some games, more casual, less.
Ah, yeah.
I can leave my script in the car, but yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Cheers.
Have a good one.
I'll catch you later. Yeah. Bye.
See ya. But that's about all I have for you today. And that's about all I have for you today. Just to be clear, this is not an open and shut dialogue, and Mike is open to having more conversations like this in the future, although probably not every week. So to that effect, if you have any burning questions that you'd like to ask about Rogue Core or the future of Deep Rock Galactic or anything in between, please leave it in the comment section down below, as either I can pass it along in a future conversation, or perhaps Mike is lurking in there right now waiting to read your very own comment. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a nice day.